Our thought for today is, did you know that dolphins are so smart that within a few weeks of captivity, they can train people to stand on the very edge of the pool and throw fish at them? Today we honor such a brilliant, smart, and holy saint, St. Francis de Sales. He was named after St. Francis of Assisi, and these two saints have been called the two saints that most resemble Jesus Christ. What a great compliment to these two great saints, Francis of Assisi and Francis de Sales. Francis de Sales was a bishop and doctor of the church, lived to be 55 years of age, born 1567, died in 1622, was canonized just 40 years after his death. And he was born in France, in Savoy. His mother was a very devout Catholic who taught him the catechism and raised him in the practice of the faith. His father was not as encouraging in the faith, but his father was a senator, wanted his son to grow up to be a lawyer and then become a politician and a senator as well. So he sent young Francis off at the age of 8 to begin his education, and then was sent to Paris at the age of 14. Paris was the intellectual center of Europe. There were 54 colleges in Paris at the time. And so Francis went to the college run by the Jesuits, received an excellent education, and studied law, became a gentleman scholar. He was very proficient in horseback riding and fencing and dancing. He was considered the most eligible bachelor among the young nobility, since he himself was from a noble aristocratic family. At the age of 24, he received his doctorate in law and was offered a seat in the Senate, just like his father. And his father had planned a distinguished marriage for him, but he declined, knowing that God was calling him to become a priest. After much difficulty with his father, eventually his father acquiesced and allowed him to pursue the priesthood. He was ordained to the priesthood and then began doing missionary work in the very difficult area that was held by the Calvinists. Different parts of Geneva and France had become very hostile to the Catholic faith because of these very strong Calvinists. And when he went off to work in that region, his father was shocked, thinking he was sending his son, that his son was going to his death. And when he was there, Francis actually was sometimes attacked by hostile crowds and beaten. On one occasion, he was surrounded by wolves and spent the night in the top of the tree, almost frozen to death by the time farmers found him the next morning. But he thankfully was nursed back to health. During his time, the government would not allow him to preach, and so he began to write booklets, pamphlets, tracts, and then he would deliver them at doors. He would get lay people, the early Legion of Mary kind of people, to help him, and they would place these pamphlets and tracts at people's doors, and this would help to convert them. And he was really one of the greatest apologists the church has ever known. He never spoke negatively about other denominations or other religions. He only explained the beauty of the Catholic faith. The Eucharist, the Blessed Mother, the saints, the papacy, whatever it was, he focused on showing the truth and the beauty of our holy Catholic faith. He's well known for his kindness and gentleness, even though for 20 years he struggled with a quick temper. In his early days, he could get angry very easily, but with God's grace, he worked on the virtue of patience, gentleness, and kindness. And he's the one who came up with the famous saying that to attract souls, it's much better to use honey than vinegar. He said a spoonful of honey will attract more souls than a barrel full of vinegar. And so he used his kindness and gentleness to bring back many souls, especially through the preaching of the Holy Rosary and teaching people the Holy Rosary. And he converted, they say, 72,000 Calvinists back to the practice of their holy Catholic faith. When the Bishop of Geneva died in 1602, he was elected the bishop of that diocese, and in 1604, when he was preaching Lenten missions at a neighboring diocese over in Dijon, he met St. Jane Frances de Chantal, a widow who God was calling to help to establish a religious order. So together they established the Visitation Nuns, who are still here today in Georgetown and New York and Alabama and many other parts of the country. And during this time, he would write letters of spiritual direction to St. Jane and to other men and women that were living in the world. And eventually these letters were put together in his book called The Introduction to the Devout Life, which is a true spiritual classic. And his other book, The Treatise on the Love of God, is brilliant. And then his other writings and sermons are also available to us. So he died at the age of 55, and he's a patron saint of all journalists, patron saint of the Catholic press, and with a name like De Sales, I always felt he should be the patron saint of bargain shoppers. Wouldn't that be a great thing? And the key to his teachings is that everyone is called to holiness. Every man, woman, and child, not just the monks and the nuns and the priests, but it's the universal call to holiness. This was picked up by Vatican II, and of course we hear this a lot since Vatican II, but 400 years ago it was a novel idea that a housewife doing her dishes, changing the diapers, cleaning the house, that is how she becomes holy, by doing the duties of her state in life. So I highly recommend reading The Introduction to the Devout Life. It is an introduction to the spiritual life, to a life of holiness, and it is certainly a great spiritual classic. I hope that all of you will take the time to read that magnificent book and implement his very practical and good common sense ways of becoming a saint in your daily life. I'll give you a blessing now with the relic of the great bishop and doctor of the church, St. Francis de Sales. Through the intercession of St. Francis de Sales, may Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy